there appears to be some expectation that with scale or size, things tend to improve or erode, and I challenge that, right? Because I've not seen it play out that way. What I've found is that leadership quality is grounded in values and priorities, right? Scale, absolutely, size of a company certainly has an impact on how you do things and what types of things you do. It has no effect on why you should be doing those things.
Welcome to the Follow My Lead podcast, where we transfer stories and best practices of today's leaders to the leaders of tomorrow with your host, John Eads.
Welcome to another episode of the Follow My Lead podcast. I'm your host, John Eads, and I'm really excited you're here because today you get a perspective that you rarely would hear anywhere else unless you sat inside a corporate boardroom or sat inside one-on-one meetings in corporate America on an ongoing basis. I asked Navid Ahdieh to join the show from North Highland Consulting because he brings a perspective of over 18 years advising financial service clients all across different areas such as mergers and integrations, revenue growth, cost optimization, change management, just business strategy overall. He's really an interesting man because of his background, being born in Iran, wanting to become a doctor, but really then being turned on to this idea of management consulting and helping companies solve problems. So we covered so many things in the show. It really builds up as you get about halfway through and we start getting into the real nitty-gritty of some of the knocks on consulting and why the golden handcuffs can be such a detriment to people. It really built as we went. So I hope you hang in till the end. There's a lot of powerful stuff. There's a lot of lessons that you can remember for a long time. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Navid Ahdieh. Just a quick housekeeping item. This podcast is brought to you by LearnLoft, an organization focused on teaching modern professionals how to add value to their organization and the world. You can learn more about their online leadership programs, sign up for their free weekly leadership newsletter, check out their podcasts and blogs at learnloft.com. Well, Navid, thanks for being here. Really, really appreciate it.
Glad to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
The opportunity to speak to someone of your level of expertise professionally, not only in the consulting world, but in the problem-solving world, which most consultants are in. I was so excited to have you here. And when we first got a chance to meet, I was just kind of blown away by your story, how you got to where you are today. So for people that don't know Navid, tell us a little bit about that background and that story.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first of all, the pleasure is all mine. I love to tell the story, love talking about consulting. And so much of my journey to consulting goes back to early life, early childhood. So how about we just start?
Let's start there.
Yeah, you got it. So first of all, I consider myself to be very lucky. My personal life has been filled with adventure. I was born in Iran. My parents had the foresight and means to create a path to America. That led to many freedoms and opportunities for a family that would not have been available to us otherwise. So everything from pursuing education, freely practicing our religion, opportunity to raise a family, contributing to our community, having a career. None of that, absolutely none of that would have been possible if we had stayed in Iran. And that was a courageous leap that our parents took that set our lives on a very positive path.
And how old were you at that point?
Very young. They managed to create that opportunity before I was a year old.
Awesome. And then you moved where in the States?
So we went from Iran to making that journey to New York. So
okay.
My father was doing his residency in New York, and we lived near Astoria. Interesting. I do a fair bit of travel to New York, and every now and then I drive through the neighborhood as I make my way back to LaGuardia.
Just so happened that you didn't follow your dad into the medical practice. What happened?
Tried. It certainly was the plan. So I went to UNC Chapel Hill. fantastic experience there. My undergraduate and graduate experiences were all in public health. Learned a lot about helping large populations of people make positive changes in their lives. My anticipation was that I would go into some field of medicine, research, rural health. So that was the hope. That was the plan. Those plans did not materialize as quickly as I thought, and that led me to consulting as a plan B.
Well, I think there's a lot of modern professionals that have faced that struggle of, do I follow what my parents did or what I'm quote unquote supposed to do?
Sure.
I'm doing the air quotes. I know we're on air,
Right.
but I think it's a struggle that a lot of people have faced, and it doesn't necessarily mean that there's the right answer at one point or another, but I do think things happen for a reason.
Sure.
I just finished this book last night called The Energy Bus by John Gordon, and it's been around since like 2007 maybe it came out. So it's 10 years old. It's amazing. It's an amazing book, and it talks a lot about our purpose and things happening for different reasons at the right time. It sounds like maybe your brother, your friends, that happened at the right time for you. And then you found this path of management consulting that you're like, this is interesting. I can help transform businesses and people and all these things. So now talk me through a little bit of that transition into management consulting. Sure. And why you chose it. And now what is North Highland Consulting?
You got it. And, to be perfectly transparent, the first year of management consulting, while it was interesting, what really kept me there was the people, and in particular, one person, right? It's the woman who I'm now married to. I've been married to for the past 14 years. That's my wife. And she's an amazingly accomplished woman. So we met at the firm that
in the consulting world.
In the consulting world, right? So we both got started in consulting around the same time, and she's now a school nurse. So she completely transformed herself and her career as well. We've got identical twin girls right now. They're 12 years old. As well as
we'll get into the raising daughters later.
Challenges there too. So that's actually what probably held me fast during that first year. It wasn't just the mystique of management consulting. It was the people that I was meeting, and in particular the one person that I happened to fall in love with.
I love the honesty.
Yeah, during that.
I was hoping
year.
You'd say there was some perfect manager that
absolutely not. John, absolutely not. There was a perfect person.
Yeah.
That really that I really connected with, and that was the most important thing for me at that time. I was coming from a solid 6-year self-driven focus of academics. 4 years of school, a year of lab research, a year of graduate study, and a lot of field research as well. To a career that could have been immediately self-focused as well.
What do you mean by that? You mean just self-fulfilling, all about Navid? Is that
all about your personal professional growth, making it to the next thing, having that next experience, learning that next thing, and making this personal connection within that work environment helped me realize that there was much more to a professional experience than just my own individual learning experience, my own individual professional growth, or even personal growth.
Or just progress.
Or
just,
yeah. It was a different kind of progress. It was a human connection. It was a human experience that I was having. I don't mean to make it sound academic. It was intimate. It was real.
Yeah.
And that woke me up. It helped me realize that continuing down the path, or even looking at the work experience that I was about to have in consulting as something short term, and taking another shot at going back to school, maybe making another run at medical school, was not what I needed to do. There was a wealth of of experience that I was gaining. There was this whole world of opportunity that I had ahead of me, and it started with my wife.
Awesome story. Just fantastic.
Yeah, that's what sparked it all.
And so there's your journey, your story, how you got to consulting. Why North Highland? What is North Highland's focus, their purpose? What drew you to them?
Sure. So consulting is for me was a very addictive environment in and of itself. I thrive off of learning. It's most consulting firms worth their salt are going to provide the opportunity to create intensive learning, intensive mentoring, intensive coaching, almost like a aggressive apprenticeship type environment. That as a foundation is what I enjoyed about the first, foundational years in consulting. What started to tip the scales for me after my first several years in consulting was that learning experience and that aggressive learning experience, it absolutely was not enough. Those public health motivations, not the discipline of public health, but the desire to give more than I was getting, those traits that I learned and I was exposed to from my parents and the commitments that they made to their community, those were hitting me fairly hard, and I needed to address those. The absence of that sense of purpose in my life, and that had nothing to do with something wrong that was going on within the firm that I was currently working with. It's a fantastic company. It was more a function of what I was bringing to the table every day. I needed a change. I needed to work within an environment that was through and through focused on purpose-driven work, end-to-end focused on value-based interactions with clients, and that's what I found in North Highland at its core. To the very
Where does that
mission. Yeah.
Where does that come from at North Highland? Does it come from the top? Does it? I've been really thinking a lot about leadership and seeing what the very best CEOs do, and in a lot of ways I think we've gotten leadership all wrong. That we think our CEOs or our C-suite is just the ultimate pinnacle of leadership, and everybody looks to them, and it's where most leadership training and development goes to. And in so many ways, I think leadership almost needs to come from the bottom. So my question to you was, did the values, the purpose, the vision of that company, did it seem to come from the people that you were working with when you got there, or was it only coming from the top, or was it a combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. So it's neither. It's throughout. And something that is unique to North Highland is that we're an employee-owned consulting firm, right? And the concept of accountability, the concept of empowerment is so deeply rooted. The concepts of caring for each other, those concepts are so deeply rooted within how we interact with each other, how we interact with our clients, that this approach to leadership, it's occurring throughout constantly. We're not expected to singularly look to our senior most leaders for that guidance. We're asked not to. We're asked to exhibit those behaviors
every single
day, every single one of us. That's how we maintain the special aspect of it.
Yeah, it's an interesting philosophy, business philosophy. It essentially is that you don't need permission to lead. You're expected to lead, right? I mean, that's really what it is at North Highland, the way it sounds.
Yeah, indeed. And we keep it simple. When your philosophies center around doing what's right and putting your clients first and your people first, it tends to create a fairly straight line to the right behaviors and the right day-to-day actions. And that's what we do.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned about, you've now gone on 16, 18 years how in the consulting world, however long it's been. You've seen a lot of organizations. You've worked with a lot of companies, big, small, across the board industries. What does good leadership mean to you now that you've had such a broad range of experiences through companies?
Sure. Good leadership. I think it centers across several things, right? They're all interconnected. First and foremost, the good leader has got to maintain healthy perspective, right? It's not so much about, there are different leadership styles, and we can talk about those certainly. But in terms of being successful as a leader and successful leadership, you've got to maintain perspective. There are going to be wins and losses, and failure as a leader is something that you've got to be prepared to navigate yourself and the team through consistently. Without that drive to maintain optimism and a focus on what is within your control, within your grasp, to motivate, to shift, to change. You tend, as a leader, you could tend to focus too intensively on the excuses, the things that are outside of your control, and that's not good, effective leadership, right?
Is there someone that
Yeah.
is there someone or an experience or a company where you look to your past and you say, that's where I learned that? Is there a person or an experience? Is there something that comes to mind?
Yeah, I look to our leadership in North Highland all the time on that topic, right? So there was a very difficult time within the consulting industry, 2008, 2009. I think that's not limited to the consulting
That's
industry.
right.
Let's just apply that to all industries holistically. And there were very different decisions, business model decisions that were being made by different consulting firms during that period of time. Some firms were transforming in different directions. Some were doing mass layoffs because they needed to. Some were selling because they needed to. Some were just they're making certain types of decisions. We took a very unique approach. We established the mindset. It's deeply rooted in our values that we're all in it together. We're going to look at what the complexities are in our business, and we're going to make decisions based on the long-term future of our firm and where we wish to go. Right? We're going to be smart about it, but the leadership decisions that we were going to make were grounded in what was in our control. We were not going to be reactive about it. We were going to be firm in our resolve that our firm is here. It's here to stay. We've got amazing people. Those amazing people have families that they're taking care of and communities that they're taking care of, and we're committed to those as well. And we took that posture.
Yeah.
And having taken that posture positioned us very well to ride that storm and come out incredibly successful once those turbulent years were
past you.
Yeah.
The long-term focus, we had Deanne Turner on from Chick-fil-A, and she told the story about Truett Cathy, the guy who founded Chick-fil-A, about how when they were really struggling in 1982, instead of coming back with massive layoffs to their first ever sales slump, they came back with a purpose statement.
Right.
And that's what they drove all their business decisions based on. And it sounds like you guys went through a hard time in 08, 09, and instead of turning right to the balance sheet, instead of turning right to where can we cut the fat immediately, you turn to what's the long-term vision and the purpose for this business, and let's make short-term decisions based on where we want to go long-term. And so there's a lesson right there for everybody listening, which is have a long-term focus, right? I mean, no matter what job you're in, no matter what industry you're in, no matter what profession you do, a long-term focus will always win.
Absolutely.
And which is why I'm sure a lot of your clients today like to work with North Highland, because you have that. We're not in it just to give you a win this quarter or this 2 quarters. We're in it to give you a win for the long term, right? And I think that's what every company wants. You've worked with some large and some small companies. Is there any characteristics of those leadership teams that separate those really good or high-performing companies and those really low-performing companies?
There shouldn't be. There absolutely shouldn't be. I think that's an interesting question, and I get that question quite often from recruits. There appears to be so I appreciate you asking it. There appears to be some expectation that with scale or size, things tend to improve or erode, and I challenge that, right? Because I've not seen it play out that way. What I've found is that leadership quality is grounded in values and priorities, right? Scale, absolutely, size of a company certainly has an impact on how you do things and what types of things you do. It has no effect on why you should be doing those things. And the concept of why that Simon Sinek talks about quite a bit. I'm a huge fan of that concept. It certainly has an effect on some of the cultural dynamics that you'll experience, right? But it should have no effect on your values. It should have no effect on the prioritization of why you're here, right? So what I've found is that whether I've served large organizations as a consultant or smaller organizations as a consultant, and by large or small, I'm referring to 100,000, 100,000+ size organization or 3,000+ size organizations. Same on the client side, right? Hundreds of thousand person organization clients, or let's say 50,000 plus employee organizations. As long as the leadership is committed to certain values and is committed to the priorities that are ingrained within those values, that's what's driving the quality of leadership. That's what's driving the quality of decision making.
Does it ever surprise you?
Scale.
Yeah. Does it ever surprise you to get into a new client or a new company and you have this expectation or this thought of what this company is, and then you begin to kind of lift up the sheets and peel back the onion, and you're like, how can a company that's so well respected be this poorly run? Has that ever happened?
You're not supposed to do that as a consultant, right? So I would say that one of the leadership traits as a consultant, right? So I'm not trying to school you, John.
No, I want you to. That's the purpose.
Especially for folks who are interested in getting into that profession, being unassuming and maintaining an open mind about the realities of any client's situation, especially some of their operational complexities, you've got to maintain an open mind.
Yeah.
There is no reason, and there certainly is no value in judging what a client is experiencing.
Yeah, and maybe I didn't ask the question correctly, because I didn't mean like tell the client I can't believe that you guys are this bad. I think I guess I maybe meant in your mind like. And it's just, I think it's one of those things that
it's okay, John. I completely understood your question. That is in your mind is where the toughest battles are fought for consultants, right? So, one of the things that
just consultants or in life,
in life, I find that in my profession, right, in my craft, the way that we think. As consultants, it has a pretty intense way of making its journey out into actions. I don't always get the flow of the concept right, but thoughts lead to
actions.
The actions, right? So you've got to have significant discipline around how you manage your thoughts, and especially as it pertains to two dimensions as a consultant. One being how you perceive and think about your clients, that you are there to serve. That's what you were there to do.
Key tenet of leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that service is certainly challenging them in diplomatic and respectful ways, right? That's what they would expect you to do as their trusted advisor. The next would be the people that you're there to lead, right? You've got to maintain that unassuming approach and that mindset, and having that discipline, that mental discipline, to not allow your mind to drift into these judgmental zones as you peel back the layers. That's one of the toughest things we do, because it has a massively negative effect on the kinds of solutions you can propose. It begins to remove creativity. It begins to remove trust, right? It begins to remove the speed at which you can solve problems for them, which is no good.
It's no good. I mean, even just this concept of, training your brain in a way. What are some of the things that you've done or that you can think to is it just come with experience? Is it come from someone helping you do that? And then how do you pass it on to other modern professionals?
It absolutely does not come with experience alone, right? I am very fortunate in that throughout my experience, I have maintained very close connectivity with my clients. So my experience as a consultant, right, has been to be almost daily interaction, have maintained daily interaction with clients. And as long as you maintain as a consultant, no matter how far you grow in your career as a consultant, as long as you're maintaining that interaction with clients, they will remind you how far you are veering from their best interest. The minute you begin to drift away from that interaction with your clients, you begin to lose touch. So that's important. I would say that's key.
I want to stop you there because
Sure.
I think this is such an important point. This applies way, way, way beyond consulting, right? I mean, the minute you lose focus on what you're here to do and for who you're here to do it for, you're going to get off track in life, in business. I mean, there's just no doubt about it. And I think the thing that you learn through consulting is what any professional can learn, which is keep your eyes on the things that you're here to do and why you're there to do them. So one of the things that I've been struggling to ask, but I really want to ask it, is there's this perception of in the consulting world that because it's a high-paying job, that people tend to get the golden handcuffs, and they really don't like the work that they do. It doesn't feel purposeful. They don't have great enthusiasm, but they make good money, so they just keep doing it. How do you respond to that question or that perception that people have of consultants?
That's a very easy response. If you're finding yourself in that position, you should stop. It's pointless. There is no value that you are adding to your clients. You can achieve that personal value in many other professions, right? So that's a simple answer. The more complicated dynamic around that really centers around the effect that those people that are finding themselves in that situation are having on the other people around them. And that's the real, I would say, sad dynamic of folks that are, let's say, senior level individuals that feel that the golden handcuffs have been placed on them, right? They're almost applying maybe it's a glass ceiling mindset on themselves, right? If you are not happy in what you are doing as a leader within a consulting firm, you're failing to become one of two leadership styles, right? You're failing to portray one of two necessary leadership styles. One is the transformative leader. I'm sure you've looked through these. And the other is the adaptive leader, right? we don't need in this profession and our clients that are looking to us for solutions, the just the charismatic leader is no longer helpful, is no longer relevant. We need leaders that transform, right? Leaders that inspire by helping build vision. Right? If you are stagnant and you're just doing it for the money, you can't build vision, and you certainly can't inspire because you're stagnant. If once again, if you're stagnant and you're just doing it for the personal gain, you can't be an adaptive leader. You can't help people. You can't help organizations. You cannot help clients identify best ways to tackle challenging situations and really muscle through the tough times. You're going to give up.
Are there things that you do? Are there things that you've done in your career to prevent that feeling? You know, when you do something for an extended period of time, at some point, you know, you not break. You don't necessarily break, but you have to be doing things proactively to not let yourself get there. Yeah. Is there anything that comes to mind that you do?
Yes, one thing in particular. You have to surround yourself by people that keep you humble. There's a dynamic across.
That's hard to do, though, right?
No, it's not hard to do at all, John. It's not hard to do. There are different dynamics across different, I would imagine, different consulting firms where the more senior leaders begin to elevate to these, I guess, levels of awe, right? Where as they begin to walk into rooms, people straighten up and they stop talking. They take.
There's Navid.
Yeah, right. I can reassure you, at North Highland, that is not how it's approached. Yeah. Right. It's certainly there's always respect, but there's respect for everyone, and that's always the case. So at North Highland, what we do just as a matter of how we work and treat each other, but what I do personally is make sure that I'm always surrounding myself by people who are comfortable calling me out whenever I need to be called out. And that has been the one thing that keeps me humble, keeps me grounded. Without that, there is no telling how far we may veer from being well grounded, right? And that's something that's supported by our firm. That's something that we're asked and we're encouraged and we're inspired to take on ourselves, because we see our leadership doing that at the top of the house, from the CEO down. We practice humility, we practice coaching, and we look at that type of feedback as a gift. That's our mantra. Feedback is a gift. You should welcome it. You should ask people to give you many gifts, and we do. So that's how we address that. So we don't have that problem.
Well, let's finish with some fun stuff.
Sure,
you've hit on so many great points from your career, and it's been said that the small things that we do repeated daily are so important. What are some of the things that you continue to do to keep growing outside of work? Is it books? Is it podcasts? Is it reading? What are some of the things that have kind of made a big impact on you?
Sure. So, not to argue with the way you've answered the question, my work life and my life are they're intrinsically connected. I work with my best friends. Some of the closest people to me in my life are the people that I work with, and that's a unique facet. I think maybe to North Highland as well. We're a bit of a work family. It's kind of our cultural dynamic as well. So I have the unique advantage, and I'm doing air quotes on unique as well, in that the ability to have people in your life that also work with you that feel like family to help you grow means that you get feedback in an unbridled way that helps you grow, right? And sometimes
so you have a built-in accountability.
Yeah,
there.
you do. So that's a fantastic gift that I have. So feedback.
Is there any book or book that
Books.
stood out? Just like, just maybe at some point in your career you read a book that made a big impact on you.
The latest, the latest reading for me, Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg. Was fantastic for me. So anything that touches on behavior change, behavior modification. I'm just getting started. I'm a few pages into Triggers by Goldsmith.
Yeah, I read that. That was a good one.
And I'm crazy about TED Talks. So the latest, and these have been out there for a while, but I watch and rewatch anything from Cuddy, from Seneca, and Pink is fantastic.
Yeah, Daniel Pink. That's who he's referring to.
Love the stuff that Kelly McGonigal has put out. So it's all great stuff. Anything that forces you to retrain and rewire the way you think.
I'll give you a quick story. I think the habits that we have in all of our lives are so important, and it's so easy after a really long day, professional day, to come home, get the kids to bed, 8, 9 o'clock at night, and just hit the couch and turn on the TV. And whatever's on, you find something, right? I've made a concerted effort to create the habit of, from 8 to 9, it doesn't matter what's on TV, I'm going to read for that hour, right? And then I end up reading until like 11. But it's starting the habit of, let's change the behavior of just turning on the TV and letting our mind rest. Right. And I think there's a lot of things that you're saying there, which is the habits that we have in our life are so important, particularly for growth. And so there's just a personal story. One of my favorite questions to ask, I know you mentioned earlier you have two 12-year-old daughters. What's harder, leading at work or leading at home?
Leading at home is amazingly difficult. My biggest flaw is that I forget that I'm home, right? So I'm using some of the leading at work tactics, but it's great. I've got a very
But your wife probably recognizes that.
Oh yeah, no, she course corrects within a couple of minutes of me being home. My daughters are also super empowered, and they let me know, like, Daddy, no, that's not going to work. So I get calibrated pretty quickly when
you start to go in that
when I start to veer out of a path.
We were having my wife was really struggling with something, and she was really upset. And I use this E plus R equals O all the time. Event plus response equals outcome. And I said this out loud. I should have never said it, right? And I said, remember, this event happened, but it's your response that matters. And she just went off. She's like, I don't need your work mumbo jumbo, And I think there's the same lesson there applies. It's hard to sometimes take what we do out of going home.
Yeah, I'm quite certain I would have been kicked out of the house with that kind of talk.
But we really appreciate you coming on. You shared so many great stories and examples. I certainly think it painted consulting, and specifically North Highland Consulting, in a very positive light. So we appreciate you being here and sharing the stories of your professional journey.
It's my pleasure.
Look forward to having you again soon.
You got it. Thanks.